you can see here, this is a band, I believe they're from Canada. They're called 10 Tall Trees. I've actually been working with them for probably 3 or 4 years now. They have a new album coming up, and they were kind enough to let me live stream while I go through and master their album. So it's going to be pretty cool. The way I approach anytime I'm mastering, essentially, is you want to listen to the track, get a feel for if there's anything that's distracting you or anything that you're noticing that's taking you out of like a moment. Okay, so we'll just play this back. So we're just kind of listening to the song, and then just kind of noticing things that might be distracting. Some things I notice right away is the sub on the kick is really prominent. And in general, this band has a cool vibe. So we're going to be a lot more transparent in what we're doing in mastering. We're just trying to get it up to level, keep things from getting distracting, and then maybe make it a little bit modern sounding, and then try to emphasize, the vocals and put a nice shimmer over the top of it. So the first thing I want to do is, anytime I do rock music, things like that, I usually use like an SSL style compressor. So for this type of project, if you're around 9 dB full scale, let me show you. So right now, where are we sitting? So here's, so we're looking right here. So this integrated number is basically our loudness. So we're at minus 11 LUFS. So a final master for something like this is probably like minus 9-ish as like a general guideline. What I like to do is I'll try to make it feel right. So if it happens to be minus 7, fine. Like if that's where the music goes, just from me listening to it and it feels right at that loudness, then that's what I'm going to leave it at. I try not to look at that number too much. The only time I will is if I think it might be not competitive with other songs. So if I'm referencing different genres and I keep coming back to this track and it feels a lot quieter, then I might take a look and see if I'm like way off the mark. But other than that, man, I just kind of push it up. In my opinion, and this is just one person's opinion, right? So I'll try to get it as loud as possible before it starts sounding bad. And then I'll back off a tiny bit, and that's where I leave it. I mean, we all are aware that louder we think sounds better, but guess what? Like, when you're listening to an album, if it's louder, it sounds better at the end of the day. So as long as it sounds good when you turn it down, then you balanced it right. Okay. We got the compressor going. I'm going to show you how I dial this in, and I actually might do some tricks because that sub on that kick is really going to wreak havoc on this compressor, I think. The way I like to always suggest to people to like really hear what the compressor's doing is to just bite into the song really, really hard. Something else what I like to recommend is putting the release really fast to start, so you can hear what the transients are, what's happening to the transients as you dial this in. Okay, so if you have the fastest release, and then we're basically going to probably do either 4-to-1 or 10-to-1 ratio here. This is just how aggressively the compressor is reacting to the music. We'll really be able to hear what it's doing to the transients of the song, okay? Really hear what's going on with the music, right? So this clearly is it's pumping way too much. So let's just dial through this attack and listen to the punchiness of the album. That's all I want you to focus on. Listen to like the kick drum and the snare and see how it makes the music move. So right now there's like a lot of movement going back and forth, right? And then as we start going to higher and higher attack, what we get is, at least to me, there's a lot more punch now. So that kick drum is really slamming through. Okay, we go back to this. We lose all the transients and the punch from the drums, right? There's like nothing there anymore. And then you get this very crazy ducking thing going on. So if we want to bring out the punch of the drums, we want to have it like at 30 milliseconds, like really, really slow attack. If we want to level things out and make them a little bit more consistent, we're going to want to do a faster attack. So to my ears, if we dial back and forth, I think it's going to be between like 0.3 and 1 milliseconds, because that kick has so much low energy. We want to like suck it up a little bit with this compressor. Right around 1 millisecond. Feels like you're not strangling the drums, but it's leveling it out a little bit. And I actually want to do something that I didn't do earlier. I want to get rid of some of that like super deep low end, because it's making this compressor hit really aggressively. I just want to dial this back a tiny bit right here. So now that we've taken care of that, now we're going to, let's listen to what happens when we change the release settings. So now what that is that's how quickly will the volume swell back after we've knocked down aggressively with this compressor. Okay, so we're just going to go back and forth, and it really helps if you go to the extremes and then back and forth so you can hear. Our ears are way better at picking up changes in things than they are just listening to one thing continuously for a long time. It's good to just bounce back and forth a lot with this. Okay, so I'm listening to the impact and how that's affecting like the feel of the music, right? So usually the way what I like to think of when I'm setting release time is when you have a really short release time, it's like you're grabbing the band and you're pulling the band closer to the listener. And when you have a longer release, it's like you're pushing the band away. So that's something else so you can kind of think about when you're using these release times. But the trade-off is that when you have really short release times and you're bringing the band closer, you're also opening yourself up to more distortion. So you're going to get more harmonic distortion. It can start sounding worse. So you have to find a happy middle ground where, if you want a really aggressive, in-your-face sound, you're going to want really short release times, and it'll feel like the band is right there. Or if you want the vocals to be right in your face, keep the release time short. Okay, this is... Because this tempo is slower, I think we can get away with a longer release time, but I think this is too long. So I actually like this auto, and I just recently read about what auto does, because I was really curious. And basically, this is going to change the release time depending on the signal coming in. So if you have a transient, it'll make it really fast, and then it'll slow it down. Depending on, the overall amount of energy getting fed into this compressor. So for mastering, auto usually sounds pretty awesome. I tend to usually go 0.1, 0.3, or auto. So if it's aggressive, it's probably 0.1 or 0.3, and then auto. Okay, so now we've dialed in the basic. I like how it feels. Now we got to dial it way back and then just pull it in just a little bit, okay? Mastering is all about being subtle, okay? So I was hitting this thing really, really hard. So let's back it off. So typically for mastering, we don't want to change the artist's vision. And if you approach something like a 4-to-1 or a 10-to-1 ratio on a compressor, unless you have a very specific reason for fixing a problem, you can change the feel of the song, and that can really mess with like the artists and their vision. So I tend to go on a little bit more conservative side with a 2-to-1 or maybe a 4-to-1, depending on if I think it needs more movement. But since these songs are kind of dynamic and they already have a cool vibe, I'm going to go a little bit lighter and do a 2-to-1 ratio here. Okay. So basically, I'm putting the threshold all the way up on this bad boy, and I'm just going to slowly dial it in until we start hearing it. Okay, so I have a question. What is movement, basically, when I'm talking about compression? But yeah, no, basically, we're listening to like how just that rocking motion from the percussion and the elements in the mix reacting to the compressor. So the compressor is literally, if you can imagine like a guy, you pay him minimum wage and you say, all right, if the signal goes above this line, turn the volume down. And then when it goes down below this line, turn it back up. Okay, like that's what the compressor is doing. And then that movement is how hard and how aggressively that person's turning that volume up and down. So it's basically just that is, I guess, what I would describe is movement. It's a really weird thing. But if you start opening this up for your project, so if you take a drum bus and you put a compressor on there and just start turning things crazy values, you will hear what I'm talking about. You will get this movement. It's like a 3-dimensional thing. Let's keep on rolling. All right, bring this compressor back. Okay, so I'm just going to be listening for when that kick drum hits, what's happening to the song, and if there's any part of the song that starts jumping out, then that means it's like moving too much, right? So I'm just listening to see what feels right. Where's the drums? Where the drums punchy but controlled, and where the vocals sitting nice. And it's honestly like right about here. Okay, cool. All right, that sounds pretty good to me. So I think that's good for this part.
The beat and defeat the villain. My confidence is straight to the ceiling, so you can say that. You said he couldn't take the cold nights. Your clothes when it looks like take off.